Hi everyone. USS Columbia was not just another cruiser of the late 19th century. It was a bold experiment, and a clear statement of America's emerging naval ambitions. Designed together with her sister ship, USS Minneapolis, Columbia was built around a new and highly ambitious concept: offensive naval warfare on the open ocean. The idea was simple, yet revolutionary for its time. Instead of fighting in traditional battle lines, these ships were meant to operate independently, striking enemy trade routes far from home waters. The primary theoretical opponent was Great Britain, whose global commerce depended on uninterrupted sea lanes. The key to this concept was speed. At a designed speed of 23 knots, USS Columbia became one of the fastest warships in the world during the 1890s. She could overtake almost any merchant vessel, and just as importantly, outrun heavier and more powerful battleships. Achieving such speed on limited displacement required serious compromises. And the price was armor. USS Columbia was classified as a protected cruiser, meaning she lacked a traditional armored belt along the hull. Instead, her protection consisted mainly of a thin armored deck, designed to shield engines, boilers, and magazines from plunging fire. Against heavy naval guns, she was vulnerable, but survival was meant to come from speed, not armor. Her armament clearly reflected her intended role as a commerce raider. The main battery was unusual, a single but powerful 8-inch, or 203mm gun, mounted forward. This weapon was intended to deal with enemy auxiliary cruisers and lightly protected warships. For broadside engagements, Columbia carried 6-inch guns, 2 on each side, providing respectable firepower against smaller targets. Defense against torpedo boats relied on a large number of quick-firing guns, up to 12 57mm cannons, forming a protective ring against fast attackers. In addition, the cruiser was equipped with 4 torpedo tubes, giving her another offensive option during close encounters. Altogether, this was not a ship designed for fleet battles, it was optimized for interception, pursuit, and long-range independent operations. Yet USS Columbia was not only fast, she was elegant. Her design showed clear attention to aesthetics. 4 slender funnels, a graceful clipper bow, and refined hull lines gave her a distinctive and almost luxurious appearance. She looked more like a high-speed ocean yacht than a traditional warship. This impression continued inside the ship. Unusually for her time, Columbia featured spacious and comfortable interiors, especially in the officers' quarters. These accommodations were designed for long, autonomous voyages far from friendly ports. Because of this comfort, she was sometimes nicknamed a floating hotel or even a naval yacht. Ironically, the ship built for raiding enemy commerce spent most of her career in a very different role. USS Columbia became a prestige vessel, a symbol of American technology and confidence on the world stage. In 1893, she represented the United States during the celebrations marking the 400th anniversary of Columbus' voyage, held in New York. Her name itself reflected this symbolism, drawn from Columbia, the poetic personification of America. She conducted diplomatic visits to European ports, proudly displaying the speed, engineering, and ambition of the growing U.S. Navy. During the Spanish-American War of 1898, Columbia did not operate as a commerce raider. Instead, she served with the Flying Squadron, blockading the coast of Cuba. Her speed proved useful, but she never took part in major naval battles. Despite a relatively quiet service life, USS Columbia and her sister ship played an important role in naval development. They were a technological stepping stone, proving both the potential and the limitations of extreme speed-focused design. The lessons learned from these cruisers directly influenced the next generation of more balanced and more heavily armored cruisers. To truly understand USS Columbia, you have to start with her hull. Because this hull explains everything about the ship's philosophy. Her hull was made of riveted steel, using a combined longitudinal and transverse framing system. The keel, frames, and stringers were arranged to provide exceptional longitudinal strength, essential for a long, narrow ship operating at high speed in open seas. What immediately stands out is her extraordinary length-to-beam ratio. At approximately 8.3 to 1, with a waterline length of over 125 meters and a beam of just over 15 meters, Columbia was far slimmer than most armored cruisers of her era, which typically had ratios closer to 7 to 1, or even less. This extreme slenderness was not accidental. It was a deliberate choice to reduce resistance and push the ship toward her magic number, 23 knots. The bow featured a pronounced ram stem, a popular design element of the late 19th century. It gave Columbia an elegant, almost retro-futuristic silhouette, but it also had a practical purpose. The sharp bow cut cleanly through waves, improving seakeeping and reducing water shipped onto the forward deck at high speed. Below the waterline, the hull lines were exceptionally fine. The midship section had low fullness, minimizing drag and maximizing speed. However, this came at a cost. Such sharp underwater lines reduced initial stability and severely limited internal volume. To compensate, designers relied heavily on bilge keels to control rolling, and placed heavy weights, coal bunkers, ammunition, and machinery, as low in the hull as possible. The stern was narrow and elliptical in shape, once again optimized to reduce hydrodynamic resistance and allow the hull to release water cleanly at speed. Seakeeping was considered adequate, but not exceptional. At the heart of this speed record stood her propulsion system, the ship's true technological showcase. USS Columbia was powered by horizontal triple expansion steam engines. Unlike the more common vertical engines, her high, intermediate, and low-pressure cylinders were arranged horizontally. This allowed the machinery to be installed lower in the hull, improving stability, but at the price of increased mechanical complexity and more demanding maintenance. The power output was astonishing for its time, 21,000 indicated horsepower. Steam was supplied by 8 fire tube boilers, arranged in 2 boiler rooms and operating at pressures of around 160 pounds per square inch. Later in her career, the boilers were modified for combined coal and oil firing. Her cruising range reached approximately 8,000 nautical miles at 10 knots, making her well suited for long-distance operations. But at full speed, coal consumption was enormous. Even with bunkers holding up to 2,000 tons of coal, endurance at maximum power was measured in days, not weeks. In the end, it can be said that this speed was achieved through extremely powerful steam machinery for the ship's displacement, highly stressed and finely shaped hull lines, and minimal armor weight, at the cost of enormous coal consumption and increased vulnerability. USS Columbia's armament was shaped entirely by her role as a commerce raider. Every weapon on board served one purpose: to intercept, overpower, and escape. One of the most innovative features of her design was the arrangement of the 6-inch guns. Instead of being mounted in traditional side casemates, the 152mm guns were placed in single rotating sponson mounts, projecting outward from the hull. This solution provided exceptionally wide firing arcs, nearly 180 degrees on each broadside. For a fast-moving raider, this flexibility was a major advantage. These mounts were protected only by light gun shields, and the ammunition supply systems remained exposed. The main battery consisted of a single 8-inch, or 203mm gun, mounted forward on a rotating platform. For a raider chasing down a target, one heavy gun was considered sufficient. But in a traditional line of battle engagement, this arrangement was clearly inadequate. The 6-inch Mark III guns were relatively rapid-firing, capable of 4 to 5 rounds per minute. This rate of fire was crucial when engaging fast-moving targets, especially lightly armed auxiliary cruisers or merchant vessels. Defense against torpedo boats was provided by a dense array of quick-firing small-caliber guns. These included 57mm 6-pounders and 37mm 1-pounders, produced by Hotchkiss and Driggs Schroeder. They were distributed across the entire ship, on the superstructure, along the decks, and even in the fighting tops of the masts, creating overlapping fields of fire against close-range threats. In addition, USS Columbia was equipped with 4 submerged torpedo tubes, 2 on each side. At the time, torpedoes were seen as the ultimate finishing weapon, a final blow against a larger or already damaged enemy ship. The ship's crew reflected both her military role and her diplomatic mission. The officer corps numbered around 30 to 40 men. Thanks to Columbia's prestige assignments and unusually comfortable living conditions, service aboard her was considered highly desirable. Officers were housed in spacious, well-ventilated cabins located toward the stern. Many had begun their careers on sailing frigates, and for them, Columbia represented the very embodiment of modern naval progress. The enlisted crew numbered between 400 and 430 sailors. Their accommodations were more typical for the era, crowded forward compartments with hammock berthing. Because of the ship's extremely fine hull lines, available living space was more limited than on broader, more heavily built ships. During long deployments, this could lead to noticeable overcrowding. USS Columbia also carried an expanded contingent of engineers and stokers. These men were essential to keep the powerful, and extremely coal-hungry, machinery running, especially when the ship operated at maximum speed. The design of USS Columbia was the physical embodiment of the ideas promoted by naval strategist Alfred Thayer Mahan and the rising vision of America's new Navy. One of the most important elements of this doctrine was range and endurance. USS Columbia carried an enormous coal supply, up to 2,000 tons. This allowed the cruiser to remain at sea for weeks, operating independently of coaling stations and friendly ports. In theory, she could strike enemy trade routes almost anywhere in the Atlantic or Pacific Oceans, disrupting commerce and forcing opponents to defend enormous stretches of sea. But endurance alone was not enough. Speed was the true weapon. With performance that placed her among the fastest warships of her time, Columbia could pursue virtually any merchant steamer. Just as importantly, she could avoid confrontation with heavier and more heavily armored ships that lacked her velocity. This ability allowed her to rapidly shift operational areas, appearing unexpectedly and creating confusion and uncertainty for enemy commanders. Her armament perfectly supported this raiding role. The combination of 8-inch and 6-inch artillery provided more than enough firepower to destroy merchant vessels and confront armed steamers or lightly protected escort cruisers. At the same time, her quick-firing secondary guns formed an effective defensive barrier against torpedo boat attacks, a growing threat in late 19th century naval warfare. USS Columbia carried tall masts fitted with fighting tops, which doubled as elevated observation platforms. The ship was also expected to take advantage of emerging technology, wireless telegraphy, or early radio communication. Though still experimental during her early years, this technology promised coordination between multiple raiders operating across vast ocean regions. The very existence of such high-speed raiders in the U.S. Navy forced potential adversaries to disperse their forces to escort trade routes across the world, which was the primary strategic objective. After her commissioning, USS Columbia quickly became an active representative of America's expanding naval presence across the world's oceans. The cruiser joined the North Atlantic Squadron, one of the most important operational formations of the United States Navy at the time. Between July 1894 and January 1895, Columbia cruised throughout the Caribbean. During the summer of 1894, she took part in the U.S. intervention in Nicaragua. In 1895, USS Columbia crossed the Atlantic to Europe, where she represented the United States at the ceremonial opening of the Kiel Canal in Germany, one of the most significant maritime engineering projects of the 19th century. After returning to the United States, the cruiser continued operations along the western Atlantic before being placed in reserve at the Philadelphia Navy Yard in May 1897. With the outbreak of the Spanish-American War in 1898, USS Columbia was recommissioned and returned to active duty. She patrolled the Atlantic coast and the West Indies, playing a vital support role during the conflict. One of her most important wartime missions was transporting American troops to Puerto Rico, where she assisted in securing and occupying the island during the summer campaign of 1898. Following the end of hostilities, the ship was once again placed in reserve in 1899. In 1902, Columbia returned to service, taking on new responsibilities during a period of rapid naval modernization. She served as a receiving ship in New York, supporting personnel operations, before joining the Atlantic Training Squadron in 1903. As naval technology advanced, Columbia found herself playing a pioneering role in the emerging field of undersea warfare. She became the flagship of a submarine flotilla, conducting inspection tours and operating between early submarine bases along the Atlantic coast, helping to support and develop one of the newest and most revolutionary naval forces of the era. When the United States entered World War I in 1917, USS Columbia once again answered the call to active service. She patrolled the waters off the Delaware breakwater as the flagship of Patrol Squadron 5 before transitioning to convoy escort duties across the Atlantic. Between January and November 1918, Columbia completed 5 transatlantic escort voyages, protecting the movement of troops, equipment, and vital supplies bound for the American Expeditionary Force fighting in France. These missions played an essential role in sustaining Allied operations on the Western Front. In early 1919, she became the flagship of Destroyer Squadron 2, operating along the American East Coast and throughout the Caribbean. Later that year, after decades of varied service, USS Columbia was finally decommissioned at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. In 1921, she was renamed Old Columbia, marking the end of her active naval identity. Shortly afterward, in January 1922, she was sold for scrap, closing the chapter on a ship that had served through a remarkable period of naval transformation. Throughout her career, USS Columbia earned several awards and campaign recognitions, reflecting her service across multiple conflicts and missions. These included the Sampson Medal, awarded for service during the Spanish-American War; the Navy Expeditionary Medal, recognizing participation in overseas operations; the Spanish Campaign Medal, marking her role in the 1898 conflict; the Cuban Pacification Medal, awarded for post-war stabilization efforts; and the World War I Victory Medal, with the Atlantic Fleet clasp, honoring her escort missions during the Great War. Thanks for watching.